Guy's Hospital was very good. It took plenty of time to explain chemotherapy to me and all the rest of it, although they might have missed off one thing. Because during the period of chemotherapy, I twice got ready, I think is the best way to describe it, to commit suicide. I wouldn't put it that I attempted to commit suicide, I'll put it rather along the way that I got ready to commit suicide. And this is for the dog owners out there. Not everybody loves dogs, but this is for those who own dogs. When I knew I was going to have chemotherapy, my wife and I decided to buy a dog because we knew I had to get out of the house for exercise, fresh air, call it whatever you will. And I knew, because I was unable to work, I'd stopped working by then because I was so ill. I'd been sick in police stations and stuff like that, which was not very helpful. And got a dog, and we got a little Yorkshire Terrier called Maggie, and we got her in the October of 2011. I do not know why, but I chose that I would get into my car. Again, I was living in London at the time. I would drive up the M1. I would take my car as fast as I possibly could, 100 mile or more, and just simply drive into the nearest bridge, post, or whatever looked concretey enough and hard enough for me to drive into. My wife, to get away from me, and quite understandably, was a bingo with her friends. It was a one escape route on a Sunday evening, and I actually got myself dressed to actually do this. And I got the car keys in my hand, and I went to the front door. Now, little Maggie, for some reason or another, never been trained to do it. Whenever we got dressed to go out, myself and my wife, she went and sat up the top of the stairs. And I went to the door, and I don't know why, I looked up and I said, look, you know, tell your mistress I'm sorry, I've got to do this, there's no way out for me, I've got to give her peace, or whatever words I said at the time. And of course, a little 4-month-old puppy sitting at the top of the head, cocked her head to one side, I couldn't do it. So thanks to little Maggie, I just couldn't do it. I actually tried it again 2 weeks later and did exactly the same thing. Looked up to Maggie and say, look, tell your mistress, you know, I really am sorry, etc., etc. And she cocked her head. And for any dog lover out there, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. I couldn't do it, and here I am still today.
Wow, that's quite a shocking story, but also powerful. I mean, what you're talking about there are reasons to carry on.
Yes.
You know, in life, you need reasons to think life's worth living, things to look forward to.
Yes.
And they can be little things as well as big things.
Yes. Well, one of the things that we had done is that I'd already planned to move when I retired from the police service. But because of my wife's breast cancer, again, this is the relevance, how it comes back, we actually put moving on hold in 2006. So we didn't move. We were actually going to move down near where my son lived in Ashford in Kent. We put it on hold. When my wife, or when we was getting to this era of say 3 or 4 years after my wife got breast cancer, we were getting signs that things were going well. So we decided to put the house back on the market again, so that hopefully when she did get the all clear, we were able to move. I then of course got my cancer, or things weren't going well at the time, so we took the house off the market. Having been diagnosed, and this is one of the important things that you've just mentioned, Dr. Mitchell, is that having now knowing the problem, we put the house back on the market for sale. And surprisingly enough, because I had a time limit to work to, i.e. my 67th birthday, there or thereabouts,
yeah.
It gave me a lot to do. It gave me moving. It gave what to do with the house. And the one thing I will say on this video that has to be taken up by everybody, power of attorney. That is so vitally important for someone in my position, because I know there will come a time when I can't make a decision for myself.
Is that something you've already organised?
Yes, oh yes. Yes, we have. I mean, as I say, the being told I had stomach cancer and curable surprisingly gave me a little lease of life, for the want of a better phrase, because we moved, I had all the business, because my wife also realised, this is where our relationship is, I look after all that side of things, My wife looks after me. I know it may sound sexist to some people, but it's lasted us for 33 years of marriage. It works for us. And so I was happy moving, making the removal arrangements, sorting out wills, making sure our finances were in order, and say most importantly, a power of attorney, which is vitally important for anybody in my position. But I had all that to do, and strange way, quite enjoyed it. I was struggling mentally with it because of the effects of chemotherapy, but nevertheless we got there.
So how do we understand, as a viewer, and from my own perspective, this kind of slight contradiction between those suicidal impulses and plans, and then that lease of life to tidy up your affairs within the time frame that you thought you had left?
Because probably at the time when I was thinking of suicide, I say I was going to commit suicide. I'm not quite so sure 100% in my own mind that that's what I actually wanted to do.
No, but there was a thought in that direction.
Oh, there was a thought in that direction. But surprisingly enough, what I didn't realise, and it may well be worth a thought, is that when I looked at the side effects of the steroids I was taking, it did actually say suicide.
It's possible because steroids can induce
depression, suicide, a whole list of things. So,
in which case we could say that bit was slightly out of character.
It would have. It would have been. I'm quite normally a very strong personality. I'm not so strong now as I used to be. I might, but you can imagine 30 years in the police service, 35 odd years playing rugby, chair of governors, all these things. Quite a strong personality.
Definitely.
But here I am. You're quite right. Thinking about suicide, as opposed to. But after that, once we got the house sort of moving thing going, once that took over, there was so much to do that I probably didn't have time to think of anything else. And I desperately wanted everything to be in place for my wife for when the time came. Everything had to be, even down to the fact that we had all the walls painted in the house. She didn't have to worry about it. We did everything.
Sometimes when somebody says they're feeling like they want to end their life, occasionally it's actually a method of almost keeping control, because when somebody says this is happening to you, this is your diagnosis, this is what's going to happen in a few years, you're relatively passive in that. You can almost be the victim of the diagnosis. But if you say, well, I'm going to think about not being here in a next week, you can kind of be in control of the situation, even if you don't go through with it.
You can use it to energise yourself. You can use it to energise yourself. And the problem, of course, now is quite simply that I'm now past my 67th birthday. As I said, I'm 68.
Yes.
But I'm in a worse position now because, one, I've done all the things that perhaps I wanted to do and have done. But of course now, I don't know what's going to happen. I still have the thought that I wish to die. That remains my number one thought.
You do, so that's still in the back of your mind.
I wish to die. However, I'm a bit of a coward. I will not do it myself.